Our new sponsor, Better, is a fast-growing daily fantasy sports app. When you sign up using promo code PLAYBOOK in all caps, you receive a free pick and a 100% deposit match up to $77. Welcome to the NBA Hangout, presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I think my hands are all right. Just make sure that we can catch things, we can hold things. We're here after a couple weeks. About to break down the Eastern Conference, and the Western Conference Finals, and talk about the NBA Finals and what we thought. But first, how is your couple weeks in the basketball world?
It was really fun, man. Like, a lot of like interesting stuff happening. I was kind of shocked at how easily OKC dealt with the Timberwolves, and I'm quite pleased that it was the Pacers that moved on over the Knicks.
Yeah, I don't know if it was on air or not, but you have the finals. Yeah, not just the finals pick of Pacers. You have them winning the whole thing. So I think you had them winning the whole thing, just like you had the NBA Cup winning the whole thing. So we'll talk about how that might go, because I think underrated in this series. I think we're going to get some good basketball out of it. We have the two best teams since January, playing each other. Record-wise, so it's not like we're getting two teams that have been bad and then just started to turn on. These two teams have been good for a while, and they're quite deserving of the placement that they have, just based on that run alone. But first, before we get to there, let's talk about. Well, you want to talk about Houston? We're talking a little bit off here, but you want to talk about like the future of just Texas and basketball. So how are you feeling about what's going on over there in Texas and what's brewing down there?
I think the residents of Texas need to be pretty excited for what basketball in their state's going to look like for the next decade. I mean, you've got San Antonio, super young, has a superstar, Victor Wembanyama. You've got Houston, super young, tons of young talent, could probably put together the best Giannis trade should become available. And you've got Dallas, who, yeah, they traded Luka Doncic, but they got the first overall pick. They'll select Cooper Flag. They still have, AD over there. It's gonna be a pretty good team
when he comes
still
back.
Got Kyrie, still got Clay,
yeah.
So
they just missed the playoffs. It's not like they were so far out. Like, they did take a dip once Luka went, of course, and when with AD getting injured, but they still were
got injured. Yeah, I mean, Kyrie's been injured, so if it wasn't for injuries, I think Dallas would have solidly been in the playoffs.
Yeah, they could have taken Memphis' spot. I think there's no reason why we don't think they can compete with that spot at the minimum. So yeah, I could definitely see that. Yeah, the future over there is definitely interesting. I don't know, like, we had this battle of LA brewing back when like 2019 happened and all these free agency signings happened, with Kawhi going to the Clippers, Paul George going to the Clippers, with that trade that resulted in now OKC getting Shea, their MVP.
Yeah.
So we had LeBron moving over to the Lakers. At the time, AD, I think, just got there or was rumored to be there and was going to be there soon anyway. So we had this like battle of a brewing, and I think over the course of COVID and until now, that's kind of died away. And I think the next big battle of like territory, we have the battle in New York. Sometimes we had that with Kate when KD was over there. Like, it's trying to be a little bit of a thing. But yeah, I think right now we're setting up for the battle of Texas. I think it is going to be quite an interesting one. If Wemby is okay, like he recovers all right from the blood clots and everything is looking okay with that. With they have Fox, who they added during the trade deadline. You're getting the second pick this year, which can either be used to upgrade, or like we mentioned, to get Giannis, something like that, or you can keep it, develop it, and go for a star that's of lesser caliber, but can still help you win now, like a KD or something like that. Like, they have plenty of options.
Absolutely.
To still fill out this roster and make a contender out of this team over there. So yeah, I think that might be the next market, if you will, to really hone in on, if you're looking for a section in the in the States to really hone in. And I think that's a good one to look into.
Yeah, I think within 2 to 3 years, all three of those teams should be contenders, and that's a pretty loaded statement. That's not just like playoff teams, that's teams that could win it all.
Yeah.
You know, assuming Nico Harrison doesn't do anything silly.
Well, he's all in on defense now, so as long as he's still committed to defense, he might have enough offense around him when you get since you got Cooper. But if he is
Cooper's a
truly,
heck of a defensive player.
he's a heck of a defensive player too, which
Yeah.
feeds into what he wants. So I think as long as he has defenders on his team, guys who look the part, look like they're athletic, look like they can play defense, I think he's happy. I think he's happy that it's a team that, you know, sometimes what happens with these GMs is that they inherit a team that's not theirs. They didn't draft these guys. They don't have the same connection, the same. They don't feel like they owe these players the same that they do as players that they've drafted themselves and brought in themselves. I think that's one of these situations here with Nico, that he inherited this team. He became the GM of this team. He wanted to make his own mark. He wanted to be more of his team. It still felt like the leftovers of another team. So I think by, you know, trading Luka, bringing in AD, drafting Cooper, now you're feeling the effect of his team and what he wants to see moving forward. So he's lucky he didn't get fired for that move, but it might just pan out, luckily, in the long run.
Yeah, some things just work out for guys. Is Nico Harrison one of those guys that like life just works out for?
He just might be like through all like the threats and everything like that, through all the scrutiny, he just like smiled. Didn't really smile through it, but he wasn't that affected by it as like some other people was. He was still out in public. He was still showing his face. He was still talking. Maybe it's not as much as people want him to, but it's not like he was a public figure to begin with. He wasn't the guy that was out there talking to the media all the time. So, you know, like he owned his moves to a certain extent. Like, and yeah, so I think he is one of those guys that just get lucky and they could just roll with the punches. seems to be one of those guys. A team that did not roll well with the many punches that OKC can throw is Minnesota. And I think we could start over there with how that series went. What were your thoughts, I guess, just to start off with how that series went? I think you mentioned earlier that you thought it was going to be a little bit longer. So what really shocked you with what happened there? OKC winning in 5.
I think the thing that shocked me most was how handily they dealt with Anthony Edwards. I kind of felt like Edwards, you know, we talked about it last year and we were talking about it all this year. Like Anthony Edwards is on the precipice of being like one of the greats in the NBA today. And with that, I kind of thought he would like single-handedly, you know, at least force things along further. When Denver took OKC to 7, I was like, okay, they're not this like juggernaut that is unstoppable. Like Denver's showing us how it can be done. So they got to Minnesota though, and OKC just walked through them. Like it was no problem at all. It was it's a little embarrassing, to be honest. And I think with that, like Minnesota's going to have to take a long, hard look at, you know, what the future of this team should look like, who should be a part of it. You know, are they going to re-sign a Julius Randle? He worked well with Anthony Edwards, but is he the right piece? Are they going to turn the roster over a little bit and try and get younger by like maybe trading for John Kuminga, you know, trying to find the Mike Conley replacement? Is it more minutes for Dillingham, or is it a trade that gets it done? You know, I think it's going to be a fascinating offseason for Minnesota. If they rest on their laurels, I don't think they're going to have a great year next year.
Yeah, they might have to, it might be time for change over there. I know they made a big change to come into this year, but I think more might be needed. I guess one of my questions was, where does Manny go for you? But I think we're gonna start off first is where you talked about Ant, and how he looked in this series. Entering in this series, I did a podcast with Frankie from Miami Heat Beat, and we broke down just how we thought like this series, how both series would go. And one of the things that we touched on with OKC and Minnesota was who's going to get into their comfort zone quicker and easier. Was it going to be Shea or was it going to be Ant? And that would kind of set the tone for the series. And I thought, you know, heading into the series, Ant did a pretty good job of handling different defenses. That was the one thing that like we saw throughout the season that he struggled with at times. But I think as the season progressed, he got better and better at it. he started to trust Julius Randle a little bit more, and was able to work with him. Randle was able thriving in that role, being the secondary guy, being the guy whose focus was just to score and bend defenses, and creating that situation. I thought Randle was doing a pretty good job with that during that time, and I think the synergy between Ant and Randle was good for that. But I think in this OKC series, when you have more and more capable wing defenders, those reads just have to be that much quicker, and it gets even harder for a guy like Ant who's still learning how to beat those type of defenses on a day-to-day basis. There was a game there where he didn't score too much, and everybody was on him about he didn't score enough. He didn't score enough. But he's like, I made the right passes. I made the right play. I got the guys in the positions that they're supposed to. Then you look, the defense was blitzing me. But there's still opportunities in those times where, the best of the best figure out ways to still impact the game and be more of a scorer in those moments. I think, and he's still young. He's like 22, 23 years old. So he's still figuring out like that curve. I think he'll get there. I think eventually he'll get there. I think this was a good run for him in terms of just learning new things, playing different defenses, and learning how to impact the game in different ways. And I think it's good for him to see a guy like Shea on the other end, who through the Denver series really had a tough one. I think the stats there was like he still ended up like statistically looking good, but there's some games there where he wasn't that good. I think he still averaged like 38 and 6 on like 60% true shooting percentage. Like it's still something absurd, but it wasn't like easy. It took him some time to figure out how Denver was playing him, when he can attack, where his guys are, and then by the end of this series, he started to look more and more like himself, and that carried into this series. No matter what Minnesota did, Shea was able to kind of get into his groove, and I think. And seeing that on the flip side and being able to apply that into future seasons, I think makes this a successful run. But when you look at guys like Gobert and Julius Randle, I think the time for them, it gets really dicey, because Randle did have a good playoff run, but when he ran into a defense that was fully locked in and fully engaged, he looked out of it. It reminded me of similar times when New York would play Miami in the playoffs and they were able to just take Randle out of the game. It's like when there's that much attention and that much attention to detail to what you do and what you like, it's hard to be the guy and be the guy that carry the offense. And Ant really needed that guy to step up to make his life easier, and nobody really stepped up in that type of way. And I guess with Gobert, you have him battling his first real true bigs in the entire playoffs. The first round he had the Lakers, who don't really have a big. The second round, who they getting in the second round? They got not Houston, because that was Golden. They got Golden State. They got Golden State in the second round. Yeah, Minnesota got Golden State in the second round, who again don't have many bigs. They got Draymond playing their center minutes there. They got young guys, Looney, who's kind of out of it, and he was able to dominate some games there. This OKC team, which is one of their big acquires, one of their biggest acquires of last offseason, was getting Isaiah Hartenstein, and just being able to run two bigs at any moment when they need to. And that really troubled Gobert in a way that other teams just weren't able to do so. And I think at this stage in his Minnesota career, they dealt 5 picks for him. He was a good addition when he was with Cat. He is there, he can lead your defense for the season. He gives you a good floor, but when it comes crunch time, and I guess we'll talk about bigs and how they affect the game negatively when we talk about the Knicks later. But when it comes crunch time, and when it comes time when you need to just dominate the paint, he hasn't been able to do it in the highest of stages when it really matters. And I think that at this point in time, I think you got to be kind of looking elsewhere. I know he's not the biggest reason for their demise in these playoffs, but I think he's still a point that we have to kind of look at when trying to build this team around Ant.
So are you saying you would flip Gobert to somebody else, or are you looking to find the right power forward to fit with him?
I think because you gave up so much for him, I think you're kind of stuck with him. I think it's going to be hard to flip him for like another big. That's going to be, I think, for what you want out of a big, Gobert is what you want. But I think what you have around him really does matter. It starts to matter a little bit more than it does other bigs, just because of some of his limitations. And we see that with other bigs. We'll talk about New York later. We see the limitations offensively for Mitchell Robinson. We see the limitations defensively for Cat. So there's always, something you got to play with when it comes to these bigs. So I think Randle was a pretty decent fit. I think Cat was a better fit for Gobert, just because he carried the brunt of that offense in a way that Randle can't at certain times. The spacing is a little bit better with Cat and all that type of stuff. So I think it's just finding the right set of players around them. I think they really need a guard other than Mike Conley. Like Mike Conley, I love him, but he's getting up there in age. So I think they really need to focus on finding where that point guard is going to be for them, and finding ways to make Gobert's life a little bit easier as well. Randall, I don't know. I don't know what you can do with Randall at this stage. I think he's a free agent. I think this year.
I think he's a free agent. Yeah.
So yeah, I think
you're open. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think you kind of want to keep him though. I think you might kind of want to keep Randall if you can flip him for a better wing. Another guy I'll be looking at is Jaden McDaniels too, who I do really like him as a player as well. But if you're looking to take that next step, you're gonna have to add sweeteners sometimes. And then if you're talking about like adding like a KD to your team, something like that, I think Jaden McDaniels kind of has to be on the table. I don't know if he is at this point. I think they really like him, but I think just looking a little bit into the future, we can kind of see where he's gonna be. Like he is a solid two-way player. The offense comes and goes, but when you look at him, he's not going to be a Jalen WIlliams. He's not a JDUB.
No.
Offensively.
Few guys are.
Few guys are. So if you're not one of those few guys, I think you can be expendable for better fits if need be.
So yeah, I look at Minnesota, and you hit on a couple names. Like Kevin Durant would be a dream target. I like the idea of the shooting and spacing big with Gobert. So I'm thinking like, Jabari Smith Jr.
Lauri Markkanen's out there.
Lauri Markkanen would work really great. Could you get Michael Porter Jr. on a discount? Any of these guys who can like space it out. Can you get Cam Johnson?
Right.
Cam Johnson
would be a nice fit. Yeah.
Yeah. Can knock it down. He would be a good fit. So that's whereas like Julius Randle, he can kind of do it all, but I think I want somebody who skews more shooting. Like originally I was thinking like John Kuminga would be really fun with Ant, but I don't know if it's the right match for the team, And then when I think of a point guard for that team, I want somebody who's like pass first, because you've got Anthony Edwards right there, right? He has to get the ball. He's going to be the engine of your offense. You're just looking for somebody who can make his life easier, if you will, right?
So let's say read defenses is easier, get him in his positions, and be a solid defender on the other end. I think defense is going to matter a lot at that guard position. So if they can get a guy who's like a hound on the defensive end, doesn't do too much offensively, just does enough, sets guys up, can hit an open shot. I think they're looking good with that guard position.
Yeah. It should be an interesting offseason for Minnesota, but yeah, they should be bummed out, but there's room to grow.
Yeah.
And it's obvious room to grow. So I think it's pretty easy to plan out off season. Whether or not they can execute, that's not always to them, right? It takes 2 to trade. Sometimes it takes 3 to trade. They should just be open-minded is all I'm saying. Because as you said, maybe McDaniels is the guy that needs to go. And they were really hesitant about moving him. So he's a good player, but he's not untouchable in my opinion.
Exactly. I think they really got to be honest with themselves and where they are and where they want to get. So I think you got to look at everything at this. I think a lot of these teams that kind of pitted out in these rounds have to look at these rosters and be like, look, the league is a parity league now. We can make these moves, and we can make moves that make sense for our team and not be too scared about it, not feel too bad about it. If we're trying to win and get that extra edge, at this point, you kind of got to do every little thing that you can to get any little bit of margin to get the upper hand with. I guess off of Minnesota or anything else from Minnesota, would you say it's a successful run for Ant, or do you think, they got to the conference finals last year? Would you say it's a successful run for Ant specifically? Not so much Minnesota, but for Ant and him as a player.
He showed growth in that, like, if I'm not mistaken, he led the league in 3-point makes, which is pretty impressive. He really needs to kind of develop that mid-range shot. He seems like a guy who continues to just like build skills one on top of another, right? I don't think he gets the finished product. So I think it's successful, but only a minor success. I don't think it was a big breakthrough year at all.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I did touch on like the playmaking, and I thought that was a big improvement from, but that was more like a season-wide thing. I think that was a thing that he worked on, I think, throughout the entire season, and became really, it showed well in certain spurts in the playoffs. But I think there's more room to grow. I think this shows on some things. I hope he doesn't take it for granted. Getting to these positions, like getting back-to-back conference finals isn't easy. Doesn't happen all the time, and I hope he's not just thinking this is something that's a natural occurrence, that it's just going to happen all the time. It's something that only few can get to do. LeBron made it seem like it's an everyday thing, but it really it really is not. Yeah, I think that's it for me on Minnesota. Like I really did like what Randall was doing for most of the year, or most of the playoffs runs. He did shock me most times. I think he felt a little bit of burnout. Going against a defense like that is just really tough. Like the OKC defense doesn't really let you breathe at all, especially when they know your weaknesses and just pounce on them. It's crazy what they can do. But talking about OKC, I did want to talk a little bit about Shea's run in comparison to like a lot of these other players. I just have his numbers here from like the Denver series in general. Cause I thought that series, I don't know if we didn't get to talk about it that much. But we could talk about it now. I thought that was a really good like MVP battle. We don't really get those too often. Two guys who are at the top of their game, who were fighting for the MVP at the time, because they, NBA decided to announce it afterwards. So Shea finished that series with 29 points, 29.7 points, 36.6 assists, 6.4 rebounds, 2 turnovers, 1.6 steals, 63% true shooting percentage for the series. Jokic finished with 28 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, 4.5 turnovers, 1.5 steals, 59%. Yeah, 14. Well, he did have like a 40 and 20 game, so
how many people have a 40 and 20 game?
Just like Shaq,
Wilt,
Shaq, Hakeem, the great, only the greats.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I love Shea, but how he didn't win MVP is beyond me.
Yeah. I will say that series in particular, I did think Shea outplayed Jokic for most of that series. I think there was 2 games where like Jokic went crazy, like absolutely bananas, where you cannot compete, like a 40 and 20, and like I think with that he had like 15 assists, some rubbish like that, some nonsense, and they got the win, and they got the win in that game. But there was a lot of games there where maybe it's a credit more to OKC's defense, but they were really able to neutralize Jokic in ways that Denver wasn't able to do to Shea in the same way. Like Denver got to him early, like I think early on in the series, but I think about the midway point, Shea was pretty much doing more or less what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. I don't think Jokic really got to that point in this series. Like he had moments, like I said, he had like two really, really strong games, but then that game 7 he peters out when OKC makes that change to put Caruso at the 5.
That was wild.
Like, yeah. Well, I don't even know they put him at the 5, but to guard Jokic, and I think that's one of those moments where like Mark earned like maybe 5 extra years on his contract. Like he now has like he is not getting fired anytime soon, because he shows that he's able to make these adjustments. He's adapt when needed to in dire moments. Because let's face it, if OKC loses that game, this is a poor season for them. Like this is not a positive season, no matter that they won nearly 70 games. You lose in the Western Conference Finals to a team that fired their coach before the playoffs even started. It just doesn't look the greatest, even if the coach did get hired afterwards. But it doesn't look the greatest.
No, I mean, it would have meant that like Oklahoma, did not live up to their standards, to their expectations, to the goals. Would have made a fascinating offseason for Oklahoma.
Oh, tremendous!
Like right now,
tremendous.
Yeah, they're just one of those teams that have all the assets, but if they go all the way, how much tinkering do they need to do? Whereas, I look at Denver and I feel like we're looking at Milwaukee a year or 2 ago, Like if Denver doesn't make wholesale changes to this roster, Jokic could be asking out in a year and he'd be completely justified. You know, one of the arguments was for MVP was, well, Shea led the best team in the league, right? Like they won so many games. Let's not forget that like Denver was terrible to open the year,
Yeah,
and
they were
Jokic
awful.
had to change
He
his
just
play
went
style.
crazy.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I'm gonna do everything, and we're gonna make the playoffs. Like we're not missing this. And he did it. Like to me, his individual effort made a bigger difference to his team's success than Shea's. And that's one of those reasons I still think he's the MVP. Also, best player in the world, reigning MVP, has his best season. It is statistically probably still better than Shea's and doesn't win it. I don't know. Like I love Shea. He's a very deserving MVP. Don't get me wrong. I just think I think Jokic was robbed.
Rob,
Only a little bit though, you know. Like
Rob might be strong, but
somebody
I think
came and
Jokic was
like took his soda
yeah.
when he wasn't looking. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jokic definitely deserves an MVP this year, 100%. Like all the things you said is 100% correct. It's just one of those things where like there's years where Steph won it over Harden. There's this argument that Harden's statistics were like, it just seems to be one of those subjective things that sometimes voters are like rewarding individual success, how much you impact the team on your own end, and stuff like that versus team success and how much you play into that. I think there's always that tug, and voters go with whichever one they want to in that moment. I think Jokic might have benefited from that like a couple years when he won over Embiid, and now he's facing the other end of it. I think it's just the cycle, the cycle of how things go. I think the only thing that I would add for Shea's case, to Shea's case for why he did win MVP is the defensive end too. I think that side of the court gets overlooked a lot in these MVP conversations. We tend to focus a lot on the offensive end, but what Shea was able to do, he might have been the steals leader. If not, he was close to being one of the. No, Dyson Daniels was the steals leader by far. But Shea's usually in that conversation for being one of the best stealing guys in the NBA. He leads in deflections. He's part of the reason why this OKC defense is so good because of what he can do from the point guard position. He gets about one block a game, which is that's not what guards typically do. Only first guard that comes to mind, not because I'm a Heat guy, but Wade. When it comes to blocking, 2 steals in a block, that was Wade's thing for most of his career. That's kind of like what Shea's been doing. So I think that defensive end really pushes him into a different conversation when it comes to that. And we saw it negatively affect, I think, Jokic in that series as well. One of the things that they were able to do is attack Jokic on the end of the court. And that was one of the reasons why Denver, not one of the reasons why, but a reason why Denver struggled a little bit in containing what Shea can do and what Jalen Williams can do on the offensive end. But I will say Chet was out of rhythm for that whole series. He looked much better against Minnesota, and against Jokic and against Aaron Gordon. He struggled. He really had a tough time against them. So there's some give and take with what Jokic can provide for you on the defensive end.
Is it because those guys are just big burly guys?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think he's going to have more success against like a Miles Turner and a Pascal Siakam?
Yeah, yes and no, because sometimes the big burly guys, it's like, okay, for instance, against Minnesota, he was fine against Gobert. I guess Gobert still have a thinner build. He doesn't play as strong as Jokic does and as Aaron Gordon does, but he's still a bigger guy. I think those guys, Miles Turner, I don't think is gonna have fun with Chet, but I think Pascal might be all right with him. I think Pascal is strong enough. I think Pascal is quick enough. He can get into his face enough. I think he can get up in him enough that it can make a difference, which is why maybe we'll get to that series. But I think maybe they might go, they might have to go a little bit. OKC might go a little bit smaller, and that, they can let Chet go. They can let Chet go at the 5 a little bit, or they might just go double bigs. And I don't know if Indiana really has a answer for them going double bigs if they were to do that. Because after Miles Turner, if Miles Turner going against both those guys, I don't think it's really in his comfort zone. He's kind of like he kind of plays like a stretch big himself, so I don't know I don't know how that's gonna look. If there's one place that I really worry about for Indiana in the finals is that front court, and what can be exposed there. But on OKC, yeah, the defensive, I think they're having one of the best defensive, playoff runs of any team right now. And I guess the other notable guy for OKC, just before we get over to the Eastern Conference, talk about Indiana and the Knicks, is Jalen Williams. I think underratedly, he's had one of these really good second tier, like second option playoff runs. He had a couple games where he had 30 points in important games. So yeah, how do you feel about Jalen Williams in his first like prominent? I guess last year he had a prominent role in the playoffs, but this is like his first time really carrying them all the way to the finals. Being one of the, this is his second year in the NBA.
Yeah,
for these playoffs, he's averaging 20.6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.5 steals on 45% shooting from the field, which is all right for your second year.
So Jalen Williams isn't in his second year.
Second playoffs, sorry.
Oh, second playoffs. Okay, yeah. Never has a player reminded me more of Kawhi Leonard. This to me is the series. This is the playoff series that Kawhi had with the great, LeBron interaction where Kawhi checks back in. LeBron's about to shoot some free throws, and he looks over and he's just like not happy about this guy coming back in, and what he's been doing to him. So I feel like this is a Jalen Williams coming out party. I think the whole league's going to take notice. I've certainly always just kind of held him back from that like star status. Like I always felt he was just like one notch below, star. And right now I'm beginning to feel like I got to eat my words. This guy is good. He's really good. He makes winning plays. He's a winner by himself. Was it Utah who drafted Cody Williams? But yes, they are just praying at the moment that he ends up like his brother.
That would be something else if he could. Yeah. He did not flash anything like his brother. That's for sure.
No, not at all.
But hopefully it's in there somewhere. Hopefully Jalen didn't take all the genes, all the basketball genes. No, yeah, I think his run has been tremendous. It just summarizes kind of OKC's run in general, like what he is good at in terms of just being this disruptor on defense, being super versatile. We talked a little bit about Caruso. He was guarding the 5 at some points, guarding Jokic. Jalen Williams has been doing that the entire year. He's played 1, he's played the 1, he's played the 2, he's played the 3, he's played the 4, he's played the 5, he's played everything. He's done it all this year. So just showing just being like the perfect, I think, symbol of what this OKC is in terms of versatility, how hungry they are on defense. He is a guy that just loves playing defense, as Cason Wallace does, as Alex Caruso does, and just gets after it. And when they turn over that ball, my goodness, are they at the other end of that court scoring on you? It is quite scary. It does remind me, like we talked about it on the last pod with Frankie. It does remind me of like the Heat Big 3 era when they would just turn, because there was games where like Wade and LeBron are kind of coasting for like 2 or 3 quarters. Fourth quarter, they're down like 10 points. It's like, all right, we'll play defense now. We'll just turn it up. And they'll go on a crazy defensive stretch and they'll just turn the game in the flip of its head. OKC, it feels like they're just like that switch that Miami would flip. They're just that to start the game at sometimes. They just love defense in a way that's just, it's like sick. It is sick. They just love turning over the ball. I think I saw a stat thrown out today. It must have been from, I think it was Michael Pina. So I think he's with the Ringer now. Saying I think they're out deflecting their opponents or out turnover. Oh yeah, their turnover differential was like that of like 100. Like it's one of the biggest differentials that they've had in the playoffs ever. OKC has created. So it's just been like a defense that just wreaks havoc on guards, wings, whatever it may be. I think the only thing that it struggles against at times is bigs, and that's with Jokic. So yeah, just one of those special defenses that we've gotten to witness this run.
No, I mean, everybody called it the beginning of the year. OKC should win. They're built to win. They just proved it all year. They proved it in the playoffs. I'm rooting for Indiana, but I think OKC is going to win. They just got it figured out, man. Like, they're so good in so many ways, and they're so deep. Like, the next man up philosophy. So OKC plays this like heavy turnover stuff that can lead to a lot of fouls and can get some of these guys in foul trouble. But, you know, if Alex Caruso fouls out, for example, you still have Lou Dort, you still have Casey Wallace, you still have all these guys behind him who are ready to do the job.
Yeah.
And it's such an advantage. It's something that I think the Knicks had a problem with. The Knicks were a shallow team, to the point where when they actually started to play the bench, they were like, oh, we probably should have had a bench out here.
we need versatility off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
We need options. We just can't play the same way the entire game. It doesn't work when you get to the highest levels in the playoffs. So the stat it was OKC has committed 100 fewer turnovers than its opponents in this playoffs, the largest net differential in NBA history. That was from Michael Pina, as well as he followed that up with, I guess someone was questioning because they foul, but they have one of the highest defensive free throw rates in the league, so they're not even fouling that much. They're super aggressive, and they're not even fouling, or they're not getting called for fouls, I should say. And this maybe this, that's been debatable. Like, their fouls, how they get away with some things on defense, other teams might not. But yeah, so they're being super aggressive on defense. They're not fouling. It just makes it super tricky for any defenses to really get through them, which is, again, I guess, the testament to what Denver was able to do, push this team to 7. It's not easy to push a team that's defense is this good to that many games at all. Moving over to the East, so we had Indiana and the Knicks face off in the Eastern Conference Finals, with Indiana winning in 6? Yeah, 6 in the Knicks, right?
6. Yeah.
Pascal wins your Eastern Conference MVP. I guess to mention, Shea got the one for the Western Conference, I think, as expected. But Pascal is the more of a shocker. So Pascal wins that award. I guess first thoughts on that series.
Yeah, so that series I think it was dictated mostly from the first game collapse of the Knicks. Like, that was a historic win by the Pacers. The way they came back in that game was like almost a 1 in 1,000, comeback. I think it was like they had a stat about teams that were up by so many points with so much time to go. Had won something like 994 times without losing. And then the Pacers are now the exception, right? Which is like such a wild kind of going against history kind of moment. And then from the rest of it was kind of everything that we had concerns about with the Knicks going into this turned out to be true, right? So,
finally reared his head.
Yeah, you got Brunson, who's a second team All NBA player, but he's a little weak at point of attack. And then to back it up with another second team All NBA player in Cat, who's this amazing offensive force, but he's a weak rim protector. He's a weak once you get into the paint, and it just got exploited over and over and over again. And then, big lumbering bigs on the Knicks that worked out well all year just could not keep up with the foot speed of Indiana. And they just tired him out and ran him out of the gym, which was wild, right?
Yeah. One of the fastest teams that we get to see to play, and especially in playoff basketball, reminiscent of kind of, I guess, those Phoenix Suns teams way back.
Faster than those Suns.
Well, I think they're faster. I think Phoenix, relative to their era, was fast, but compared to this area, I think they might be like average now. But no, yeah, I think and by far plays that. But being that successful and playing that fast usually doesn't work. Usually sloppiness happens, stuff like that. You get a little careless on the offensive end. But then again, you have a guy like Tyrese Haliburton at the helm of all this, who has 30-point triple doubles with no turnovers. Takes
Yeah.
them a game and a half to get a turnover. So I think that really helps playing that fast style, having a guy that's so that can protect the ball in such a great way as your point guard. It's just such a benefit to your team's offense, allowing it to play so freely. I think in this series too, we talked about before in previewing this series, there's going to be a stylistic battle. It's going to be Indiana trying to run it down their throats, and the Knicks are going to try and play this defensive staunchy game, slow down game, Brunson ISO cat work from the post. And we want to see which style would win out, and that Indiana style definitely went out to the point that we're making a little bit earlier, that had the Knicks looking for answers on the bench that they did not have. That lack of depth really caught up to them. They weren't able to match the pace that Indiana played with. They just weren't prepared for that. It was something they didn't really prep for the entire year. You know, we talked about how they really prepped their team. They built this team to beat Boston. This was a team to beat Boston. I think they felt like that was a team they're going to have to beat. And if they can beat Boston, they can get over the hump.
Yeah.
Not factoring into other type of play styles, and how in a league that has much growing parity, the way that you play and how versatile you can be matters more than just being able to beat the top team. I think that used to be the way that you can get by. You see the top team and find a way to take them down, and usually the rest will fall into place. But I think when the league becomes so much parity, your style is going to matter much more. And if you're not the best at your style, or if you're not able to impose your style, then you have to be able to adapt. And I think that's just where the Knicks kind of fell short.
So who do you think will be able to impose their style more? OKC or the Pacers? Or is it the same style?
See, that's question I was gonna ask, is like, which can OKC, because I think they both like playing fast. They both
Yeah.
do really like playing fast. OKC doesn't mind it as much as the Knicks do. I think OKC's half court offense can be a little bit better than what Indiana can provide if Siakam isn't going crazy. If Siakam's going crazy, then it's a whole other story. But I think if I just take it at face value, then I think OKC then should win the half court battle. My thing is, can OKC do enough defensively to upset Tyrese and upset that the Pacers want to do on the offensive end? Because if they can't, if the Pacers are comfortable on that offensive end running and they're not turning over the ball, Tyrese is still having games where he's having one turnover or two turnovers at the most, and they're still playing fast. I think that's where OKC can get caught, because their offense, people keep talking about how good OKC's offense is, but I think a lot of it comes from their defensive end. When their defense is clicking, that's when their offense really starts to show. They're not naturally this offensive juggernaut that like the Pacers are. They're good at offense. They have guys who can score from all types of places. They have one of the best scorers in the NBA, one of the best players in the NBA. But I think where they win games is on the defensive end. And if they're not able to impose that into this series, I think that we can be looking at a longer series and maybe we're predicting it to go at this moment.
Yeah, and you know, I saw some people predicting that like Oklahoma wouldn't lose a game in the finals, and I think that's really kind of selling Indiana short.
Yeah, I think so too.
Like 5 or 6 games, I kind of think is what it's going to be. I'd love it to be 7, and I'd love it to be the Pacers, but I kind of think it'll be like 5 or 6 Oklahoma. Because they can match pace with the Pacers, which is their biggest play style outlier for most teams. Like you talked about, you know, the Knicks being built to beat Boston and not having an answer for the Pacers because they don't match up stylistically. I think Oklahoma matches well with them. Like they're going to try and jump passing lanes and all this kind of stuff throughout the entirety of the series. But I also don't think like Tyrese is going to have the ball a lot. He's going to be the engine. And I think he's a bright kid. Like, I think he understands that, like, what Oklahoma is going to try to do to him. I think when it comes to the finals, it's really going to come down to, like, all the secondary players, you know, the Lou Dorts, the Andrew Nemhards, the Kason Wallaces, and the Benedict Math. Yeah. You know, if one team's secondary players are, you know, doing their job, like guarding the guys they're supposed to guard without fouling out, but also hitting threes, I think that's the team that's going to come out of this, right? One of the
Yeah,
problems that Oklahoma had against Denver was they didn't hit a lot of threes. They, for whatever
yeah,
reason, the three ball wasn't working for them the way that it normally does, and that became a problem. And one of the benefits that the Pacers had over the Knicks was they were hitting their three ball really well. Like in that final game, Andrew Nemhard went off. You know, Aaron Nesmith for a while was the playoffs' most deadly 3-point shooter,
he had six and a
most
quarter.
reliable. Yeah. So I think it's really not necessarily going to be the stars that determine this finals. I think it's going to be the secondary players.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening. My question would be, can Indiana make life hard for OKC to get to the rim? Because I think some of the effect of what OKC was feeling in that Denver series, it wasn't as easy to get to the rim with Aaron Gordon being down there. Christian Brown was playing strong defense. They had a system. They had like all their eyes on Shea whenever he had the ball. So it was really tough to get to the rim. When it was Minnesota, it was a bit easier for Shea to get to the rim. He found this seemed a little bit easier. He was able to bait his fouls as he needed to a little bit more easier than you in the Minnesota series versus what he could do against Denver. And that same thing went for Jalen Williams. So I'm wondering because I think my biggest issue with what Indiana can do and where I get scared that this series can get out of hand is that front court. And if they're not able to either, you don't have to be big, right? You don't have to have a big, strong team to prevent things from happening in the paint. You can have Miami is a good example for this. I know I keep bringing them into this. They're a good example for this.
Wearing the jersey.
Yeah, I'm wearing the jersey, so I might as well talk about them. Their thing was they just weren't allowing teams to get into the paint. They didn't have a rim a paint protector like, let's say a Rudy Gobert or like your traditional rim protector, but they had a guy in Bam who's a very good perimeter defender for a big and can stop people from getting to the paint entirely. So instead of focusing your defense on meeting people in the paint and stopping them when they get there, their idea was we're going to stop this before it even gets there. I think Indiana, if they're going to have this Miles Turner is going to be your hub. He's going to be your anchor. He's going to want to block shots. But the rest of the guys have to be focused on making it as hard as possible to get into the paint. And I think they kind of have the personnel to do so. Like I think Pascal, when he's locked in, can do that. I think Nemhard, when locked in, he's been very good on that end. As well as Nesmith, he can be another guy on that end. Tyrese, he's going to get picked on. This is going to be a series that's going to be hard for him. They're gonna pick on him. He's been able to survive for the most part because he's a little bit taller, so he hasn't been shown to be too bad. He tries really hard. He has a couple steals in that last game that were very important. He makes defensive plays, but they're going to make him work on that end. If not to just make his offensive life harder, they're going to make him work on that defensive end. So I guess, will Indiana be able to make life difficult for OKC to get to the paint?
Well, let's remember, this isn't the same Indiana team that was last year. Like they really improved their defense. If you look up the stats on their team defense, like they're actually sneaky pretty good. And you're right. Like there's a lot of fleet of foot guys. You know, you need some bigs who can step out towards the perimeter and still be able to collapse back when needed. That's Siakam and Turner, you know, to his credit. Like Turner, let's not forget, like for a guy who's a stretch big, he's still a good shot blocker. He can still do help defense pretty good. Maybe he's not the guy to stand under the net, but his arms in the air and take a charge. But you know, he's mobile, he's engaged, he's working. I think Miles Turner is like being slept on in this series a lot. You know,
he might be a big X factor for this series because I think, like looking back in that Knicks series, he was able to stay on the court in a series where Cat and Mitchell Robinson had trouble staying on the court. I think that speaks to the Knicks build as well. It's like you have two bigs there. Cat, who can't stay on the court at the end of the games for defensive reasons. Mitchell Robinson, who can't stay on the court for offensive reasons. I think that really just shows where we're at in the basketball world when it comes to defensive bigs. Like you have to be able to impact the game. And even same thing with Rudy we were talking about earlier. Rudy as well had struggles in some of those games when there start to be more bigs involved. Like you need to have bigs that are able to be mobile enough stay on the court, and produce enough on the offensive end so that they're respected. Whether it be a three ball, we see with Miles Turner, whether it be a good roll game, whether it be that good mid post game, which you see at Bam. Like you have to have something that you hone in on the offensive end to make the defense respect you. And I think with Cat, he has it on the offensive end, but there's just too many times where he's able to get picked on the defensive end, whether it be pick and roll, whether it be in ISO situations. Same thing with not as much Mitchell Robinson. He did a great job on the defensive end, but when it came to offense, they're fouling you before they even get by half court because they're okay with you. They're okay with you going to the free throw line and shooting. And that's an issue as well. And when the game got super fast, he became less effective. But I think when you go into this Indiana series versus OKC, you have two bigs now who are able to close games. You can close with either one now. I think that's going to be a big challenge for Miles Turner to face. But if he's able to win his matchup, I think if he is one guy that can win his matchup, whether it be against Hartenstein or Chet, that bodes well for Indiana's chances in this series. I guess another front court battle I'd ask is who's going to win the matchup between Pascal and Jalen WIlliams.
If you were to ask me right now, I think the problem is like, if Indiana is going to have success, Benedict Mathurin has to really, like step up and really affect Jalen Williams' game. Even if Mathurin doesn't do a lot of scoring, he has to slow down Williams. To me, he's kind of that question mark coming into it more. I think the matchup will be Chet and Pascal. But I think Jalen Williams is going to get matched up against Mathurin if I were to put my money on it right now. I mean, we'll see. I'm not the coach. We'll see what Rick Carlisle does, but
I have this as like Pascal versus Chet / Jalen Williams. So whichever one that whichever one he gets to, I feel like it's gonna be Jalen Williams at the time, just because I think they're gonna use Jalen to go. Maybe he's the one that's guarding Pascal. Pascal might not be the one guarding Jalen. I feel like they're gonna use him just to slow Pascal down at times. I think they like Chet to be closer to the basket when they can get him there. He's fine on the perimeter, like he's not like a liability, like some of these other big men are. But I think they prefer him to be more of a rim deterrent. Like the way that he looked, man, versus Minnesota than it was when he faced Denver. It was like night and day. Like I think it was game 1 or 2, and everything in the paint was just being affected by Chet. Like he was blocking shots. If he wasn't blocking the shots, he had a hand in there. Like he was just making my life miserable for people in the paint. And in the Denver series, that was just not the case at all. And that just shows like how good Jokic really is. Like just how much he's able to just make that guy not a non-factor completely.
Yeah, Jokic is magic. If Chet gets back to just like being long, being active, just being a nuisance, I think he could really affect Pascal. But Pascal's like, built his career on just kind of getting through guys, right? Like he's a slim dude, but he's also like, he's all shoulders and elbows, and they're really pointy, and he's like really tough. Like really tough.
He plays hard. He plays hard all the time, and he's running all the time. It's not an easy thing to like. He plays into what OKC likes to do, which makes this a fascinating matchup to me. Like if the OKC starts to turn over the ball and run, Pascal is running too. Like he's no shame in, okay, this is a track meet. We can do this. we can go for this.
Also, can you spin? Because I can spin.
I can spin.
Right? I can spin. I'll just spin around you. Right? Like I think they don't want to put Hartenstein on Pascal because he will just spin around him. I don't know if Hartenstein will be quick enough to match up with him. I think Chet's got an opportunity. Williams definitely has an opportunity. His long arms and his like strong build as well. But at first you got to try and keep Chet on the floor. So I think they'll try and do Chet on Pascal, Hartenstein on Turner, and then I think it'll be Williams and Mathurin, and then I think you just flip the guards. So I don't think Shea and Tyrese are going to go against each other. I think Shea will go against Nembhard, and Tyrese will go against like Lou Dort, you know.
Yeah, I think it'll be Dora will probably get that first matchup. I could see Neesmith
Yeah.
even guarding Shea at times just because of the size.
Yeah.
They had Jaden McDaniels on Shea, so I think that they could do something similar. With that, I think you like putting some size, some bigger guys on him. Sometimes he's fast, but he's more deceptive than he is fast.
I think you need somebody disciplined on Shea.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, you have to have extremely high discipline and poise, just because of the foul baiting.
Of course,
It's
yeah.
like
When
Shea's like number one skill.
when
You
you're
got to slow
playing
down.
guys like when you're playing, he's gonna go fast. He's gonna stop. He's gonna make you in uncomfortable situations, and you're gonna end up with a foul. That's the way that
Yeah.
that's the way Shea's gonna play. And then when you're not fouling him, he's gonna get to his mid range game, and
Yeah.
he's it's tough. It really is tough. Guarding a guy like Shea, but it's like the same when you're guarding a guy like Jalen Brunson. Like Brunson's the same. He's gonna look for those fouls. He's gonna find a way to get fouled. James Harden. It's gonna be like these guys. That's what they do. They put the defense in these compromising positions, and they take advantage. So it'll be. I think a disciplined defender is where you go. Nemhard's probably where you would look at for that to start. Neesmith is probably if you need to get a little bit tougher, on Shea.
Yeah.
But as we talk this through, I feel like this is a 6 games. I don't feel like this is going to be like a short 4 or 5. I think Indiana steals a couple of these games and makes it a real series for OKC. I think they match up just a little bit better than Minnesota did. Minnesota really wants to play that slow game. Randall wants to slow down and doesn't mind slowing down. Gobert definitely doesn't mind it. So I'm very intrigued to see how this series can go because I think this matchup is going to be a little bit closer than people are making it out to be. Maybe it's not, but the way I see it right now, I could see it being pretty close.
Yeah, same. Like I still, as I said, like I still think it's gonna be Oklahoma's series to lose, but I think the Pacers are a better matchup than people are giving them credit for, right? Like it feels like because it's not Boston or Cleveland or the Knicks that people are looking at this and just saying, oh well, this is done right away, right? Like it's an aberration that the Pacers made the finals. And it's like, it's not. Pacers are a really good team. And they're going to be a good team for a long time. Yeah.
Second best team in the NBA since January. So this by no mistake that they're here. There's
none at all.
These two teams are in the position that they're in. They're well deserving. And they play up to their competition. They're a team that plays up to the level. So the better the team, the better they play. So I'm definitely intrigued to see how this goes and who wins this track meet.
So let me ask you, you have a fair number of jerseys. You wear them on this program quite often. Will you get a jersey of the winning team this year? Will you get a Shea jersey if it's Oklahoma, or will you get a Haliburton jersey if it's the Pacers?
I don't know if I could wear a Haliburton jersey.
What's wrong with Haliburton? Why does everybody hate this guy?
I don't even hate him.
I like him. All he does is smile, and he plays fun basketball.
I don't hate him. I just don't know if I could. I think I'll get a Pascal jersey before I get a Tyrese jersey. I don't like the funny thing is I really like I've been on this OKC thing for a few years.
Yeah.
I don't like their jerseys. Like I just don't like their jerseys.
No, they don't have a fun jersey, eh?
If I was to get a Shea jersey, I don't know which one it would be. Like if OKC,
kind of like the orange one.
The orange one's not bad. I kind of like the black one. The blue one sometimes I don't mind. Like the white one, like nothing just really like pops to me.
It doesn't feel iconic, eh?
No, it really doesn't. It really does not feel iconic at all. Like the Indiana one for sure. That one feels like it feels, and especially if you get a retro one, like it looks real cool. I could definitely do a Pascal one.
But for OKC, honestly, that's how I felt about the Raptors. I felt like the Raptors won their championship in their worst jersey.
Yeah, that is true. That was not.
I hate the chevron jersey.
Yeah,
I
didn't mind the There's one I didn't mind the red and white one. That one I didn't mind, but still not. It wouldn't be in my. It'll be in my top like maybe 6 of Raptors jersey. Still not in the upper echelon.
Nowhere close.
Of jerseys. Is there anything else with this series to think of? I feel like there was something else that I wanted to mention, but it is gone for me definitely now.
I'm just really excited for this one. I think it's going to be the fastest pace of play in an NBA Finals ever. I think it's going to be a pure track meet. I think some guys are going to get a new level of respect put on their name. And I'm really just kind of fascinated to see how it plays out. And however it plays out, I feel like Indiana stays the course. Like they're not going to change too much, but like Oklahoma is super fascinating to me from an off-season standpoint. Partly because they got to pay a lot of guys. So, who gets moved on just because of cap crunch?
Mm-hmm.
So if they win, I think that cap crunch is the issue. If they lose, do they go big game hunting? Because they've got everything to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just kind of fascinated. I'm really, really interested just to see how things play out.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this series. I think it's actually gonna be a pretty good one. I don't think these guys are gonna bother Pascal in the way that they've been able to bother some of these other bigger wings like Julius Randle. I think it's gonna be different. I have faith for this being a pretty fun series, and we get a new champion. We get a franchise getting their first championship, no matter
No
what.
way. Yeah, neither have won.
Neither have
Yeah,
won.
that's
Neither have won.
awesome.
So we're getting
Yeah.
fresh blood. The NBA enters its parody era for real.
So you talk about the parody era, and it's one of those things that I think about a lot as well. Is like, because I'm a big fan of team building, obviously. For the last couple of years, it's been about like, oh, it's the return of the bigs, right? It's Embiid, it's Jokic, it's Giannis, it's AD. Now it feels like it's the return of the lead guard, your Haliburton, your Shea, your Cade Cunningham, your Anthony Edwards. And Edwards is the only shooting guard that, well, I guess like a Booker as well, who's kind of in that stratosphere. To me, yeah, if success comes, the offensive engine of the modern NBA is a large point guard who can play make, who can score, and who just like executes. So I think it's
Next
be the
one,
most
next one,
valuable. Yeah. Next one could be Dylan Harper.
I think we have Cade Cunningham right there, right on the
Oh,
precipice of being one of those guys.
Cade Cunningham is ready for like watch out for Detroit the next 2 years. Like they're ready to go.
If they make some off-season moves,
Yeah. I think LaMelo Ball might be sneakily one of the most important off-season targets for any team.
Is that a Minnesota? Like, does Minnesota go for that? Like, does Minnesota try to do something?
I would love that.
You go like they need a like because they just need a guard, man. Like some.
Yeah.
Can
Can you imagine
Darius
Edwards and
Garland,
Ball together?
Garland, who like they're starting to Jaden McDaniels for Darius Garland and some stuff. Like, sorry, Jaden McDaniels and some stuff for Darius Garland. Like, this is the type of moves that I need to see like Minnesota. And we didn't talk about much about the Cavs, but like they petered out early. They have the best record in the NBA.
Yeah.
They were hurt, but they were hurt, but they didn't have much. They didn't have much once Mobley went down. Well, once Mobley got hurt, and once Garland, I don't know how much that really affected them in the way. Of course, he's one of your better players, but I think he's one of these guys that gets picked on in like these settings. I don't know how much he would have thrived. Like for offense, sure, but for defense, I just don't know. Like I think this playoffs would have told me a lot about who Garland is, and I just didn't get to see what he's really capable of. I mean, Donovan was a little bit hurt as well, but to go out in the fashion they did,
that's a fascinating topic right there. What is Darius Garland? Is he at his best right now? Is there room to grow? What kind of system does he make most sense in? Yeah. I've been kind of like thinking for a while, like, is there another guard out there in that like Haliburton on Sacramento kind of place where it's like you've got this lead guard who's actually stuck in a secondary role?
Yeah, Jaden Ivey.
Is Jaden Ivey that? I'd
I
like
think
to
so,
think
but
so. Is Scoot
I hope
Henderson
so.
that? Is Darius
Yeah.
Garland that? If you're making it for any of these guys, right, you're betting on it. The Raptors bet Quickly was that, and I think Quickly's just a CJ McCollum type. I think he's a secondary guard. So you could find yourself in a dangerous position where you're trading a lot for a Garland or for an Ivy, only to find out that they are in fact a secondary guard.
Yeah, I think where Garland values out in the NBA is very fascinating. Like they said, like I guess one of the little tidbits that came out in the last couple of weeks was that Garland is available. I don't know if it is available, but they're listening. Available might be strong. They're listening. They're listening to offers for him and Jared Allen as well.
Jared Allen, really interesting.
Yeah, it looks like they're finally trying to not break up this core, but they'll see what's out there. They're not. I don't think they're going to do anything rash. The Cavs have been pretty responsible with their build. Like I don't think they're going to do anything too crazy too quickly. But if you get like a
maybe they
McDaniels,
finally think that Mobley is a center.
Yeah, he might be ready. He might be ready to be their lead center now. It's time. It's time for that to be a thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of the question that I had with Indiana. Do we think, bringing it back there, do we think that they're going to have to play small in this series and have a guy like Pascal play the 5, just to keep the speed up? And is Turner going to get played off of that court? And if so, how does that affect OKC? Is that a good thing for OKC? Like, are they going to relish in playing smaller ball? Like, they can go with they've been as small as Jalen WIlliams at the 5. They can go Chet at the 5. Do we see some super small basketball in this series?
That's interesting. So you're suggesting that Miles Turner and Hartenstein are both off the floor?
Yeah, they get both played off the court.
They both get played off the floor. So you see more of Jarris Walker, unfortunately, twisted his ankle.
I think he's out for 2 games.
Yeah. So now you're looking at an Obi Toppin. Obi can run.
Pascal. Yeah.
And Pascal played the 5 for the Raptors a lot.
He did. Yeah, he did.
He definitely has experience there. He definitely has experience in small ball. He definitely did not shrink from the assignment, if you will. I think maybe you don't want to go too small. I don't think you want to
if you're OKC.
Yeah, I don't think you want to put Pascal at the 5 because
you want to play a bigger game.
Yeah, it means that you're also compromised. And I don't think Pascal loses anything by going to the 5 against a smaller lineup. Pascal against Embiid, you don't want him at the 5. But Pascal against Chet, not a problem. Pascal against Jalen WIlliams, I'm sorry, not much of a problem. Against, Caruso, who knows?
So my who knows with Caruso. So my thing is my worry about like how thin Indiana is in their front court. Maybe they should be striving to just playing these guys off of the court and getting it to a position where Chet is your main 5, and at times maybe even you try to get him off the court. I don't know if they can get Chet off the court, but I think if they can work towards something like that, if they're gonna counteract having a weaker front court, I think you go small. And I wonder if they're able to make OKC play small as well. And if they get into that type of track meet, who wins out? Which would be interesting. I think it does favor the Pacers slightly because they have size in some of these spots. Like Neesmith is still a big guy. Siakam's still he's still big. Thompson's still big. Like they're big, but they're functional big. Mathurin is still kind of long and big for his size as well too. Nembhard's a bigger guard. Tyrese is a taller point guard, but he's still your weak point, but he's a taller point guard. I think all around they might be maybe the most suited for this. So I wonder if they're going to crack that out in this series.
I think the Pacers match up better with Oklahoma than a lot of these other options could have. I think maybe a fully fit Boston could have been a tougher matchup. Maybe a fully fit Cleveland, but I don't think the Knicks would have matched up well against Oklahoma.
Knicks would have been swept. That's a sweep. To me,
that's a sweep. Whoa.
Yeah, I think that would have been a sweep. I really am disappointed in Boston. Like tremendously. I know Tatum went down, but they were losing. They were losing that game whether Tatum played or not. Like that specific game where Tatum got hurt. Like it was not looking
Yeah.
good for Boston whether or not Tatum got hurt. It sucks what happened to him, but there was no reason. Like my Boston's front court and the way that they weren't able, not even the front court, the way that Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown weren't able to get into the paint and affect things in the way they should have against that Knicks team. Like they couldn't play cat off the court. Like I know you're like you still have guys like you play this 5-out offense. The reason for you play this 5-out offense is to limit guys like Cat. Cat shouldn't have been a factor. Mitchell Robinson should have been less of a factor than he was in that series. And I think Boston's kind of getting a break. I think from the media in general of just like they got taken out. They're the defending champions. Like Tatum got hurt, yes, but they still had depth. That was one of the things that they had. They have depth. They should have been able to rally behind an injured player. They sort of just laid flat after that happened and just kind of gave over the series. And I think, I look at this New York team, and this New York team shouldn't have been able to do that much damage against Boston in this situation. Like I think Boston should be catching a little bit more flag than they've just kind of skated by. I think this entire run.
Yeah, it's everything happened. Like,
I know
right.
KP had like a crazy like disease. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what sickness he came across, but like I know he was affected in a way that was really detrimental to his health, and he wasn't able to perform at the level that he wanted to. But regardless of that, you're not looking for KP to be that guy regardless. He's not going to be the guy that's going to break defenses in the paint. He's going to be your spacer. He's going to roll on occasion. He'll get 1 or 2 lobs in the game, but not even at this stage in his career. He's not doing that the same way he was as a younger player. So I'm not even really looking at KP for that. They should have been able to take care of that without KP. In my mind. But yeah, I think they just skated by, man.
Yeah, you're right. And everything just like circles back to this Tatum injury where they're like, oh, Tatum got hurt, so they had no chance. So, oh, well. And now it's even like the offseason. They're like, oh, well, like we should probably trade all these guys because Tatum's going to be out for a year. So what's the point? And it's really like, yeah, you should trade all these guys because they underperformed. Like the build is past its peak and you need to retool. Otherwise, you'll find yourself obsolete, right? And how many teams have we found obsolete? Denver, the Bucks, the Raptors. It's easy to win the championship, think you got something, not make the right adjustments, hold on to guys too long, and get past, if you will. So yeah, I think Boston has a lot of work to do this offseason.
Yeah. It sounds like they're going to do a lot. Like it sounds like they're already going to be shopping guys. Like everyone, it seems like everyone but Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown seem to be on a market. But if Jalen Brown was to hit that market, I think he would have some crazy suitors. Like I think Houston would do a lot for that guy. Like he is one of the highest paying guys. But the way that I don't even know if I feel that way about Jalen Brown as the player himself. But just the way that I've seen people talk about him in regards to that and like what they would give up. Like Houston was a team that came up when talking about Jalen Brown. Hawks have been a team that's always talked about Jalen Brown. And I think some of these teams, Denver, I think was another team that spoke about. I think some of these teams who just need like a two-way wing, look at Jalen Brown as that guy. And he's still young and in his prime. Finals MVP last year.
Plus, he's like, he's like the adult in the room. Like Brown is like he's a deep thinking kind of guy. Like he's a smart dude. He's a professional dude. If you need a guy who's going to walk in, provide you everything you need on the basketball court and in the locker room from a leadership standpoint, like, yeah, you make a move for Brown. I don't know if is it Minnesota? Does Brown unlock an Anthony Edwards?
I think any of those teams, I think that's fine. Like I think that works too. I think he's a great and we were talking about league guards earlier and like how there's maybe like not as many shooting guards. I think he is one of these guys that provides that two-way shooting guard that is rare and hard to find. Like that's why Boston was so successful. Having two wings like this is hard to find. I think he'll have plenty of suitors going into the offseason if they were to make him available. It sounds like they want to keep him still, which of course you do. But I think they should listen. They should listen.
Everyone should listen. Yeah.
Everyone should listen. Anyone should listen. And I think we've done a good job. Everyone watch these NBA finals. I think they're gonna be good. Just because it's not your favorite marquee team there, just because your favorite team isn't in it no more. I mean, they just weren't good enough. They weren't good enough. If they were good enough, they would be there.
That's kind of fascinating. So you've got two smaller market teams, but they both have fun play style. They both have star power. Do they still attract high numbers for the NBA Finals as far as like viewing?
I don't know, but I do know those arenas are going to be crazy. Like the Thunder's,
Yeah.
the Oklahoma City's home arena and the Indiana home arena are going to be outrageous. And I think the atmosphere is going to be some of the best we've seen in recent memory. I think that's going to go a little underreported as well because they don't want to big up this matchup as they should. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And it's going to be like lots of crowd noise. It's going to be exciting. They're going to wear their colors. The crowd is going to wear the shirts. Like these are things that we shouldn't be taking for granted.
The crowd are going to wear the shirts. I love it. Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. Like, must watch TV for however many games it lasts.
However many games it is, we gotta
Hopefully
enjoy
7.
what we got left. We will. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. This has been the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. You can follow me at BJAY93_. You can follow Dave here every week. You can like and subscribe on YouTube, all that fun stuff. Thank you. Peace.